Finance Committee to order for November 7th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Member Downs?
Here.
Member Bollier?
Here.
Member Bellows?
Present.
Member Canary?
Present.
Member Cusimano?
Here.
Member Harrington?
Here.
Member McGowan?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Alrighty, we're going to move on to item C. Take a motion to approve the minutes for the October 3rd, 2024 Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Bollier. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, General Business Administration Finance Report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your attendance here this evening. I will start by saying that we are 35, I'm a bullets person, so if you want more, let me know, okay? We are currently 35% into our fiscal year. We calculate that by number of pay periods divided by the total number of pay periods and how many pay periods we've had. On the revenue side, our budget, as you know, is $74.8 million. Year to date, we have received $25.8 million, or 35% of that budget. We anticipate receiving an additional $20 million, or budgeted $20 million from property taxes in late December. And that's at this point really all, because most of the other revenue doesn't come in until on the second half of the year. Any questions on revenue? Okay.
Actually, I got one.
Yeah, sure.
Just for long-term notes, when we enter what would be our considered third quarter, could we have a projected, which I figured you would have, of how much will be left over based on?
Yes, and on my follow-up from last meeting, it's addressed that you will.
Okay, thank you.
Expenses, again, the break-even number of $74.8 million. Year-to-date, we have spent $22.9 million and encumbered $7.5 million. Non-salary expenses, I wanted to point out several points where we are a little bit ahead of where we would expect to normally be. General supplies, we are at 47% of budget, and this is mostly attributed to schools purchasing items that they need for the beginning of the academic year. So that is $173,000. Rental equipment is at 46% of budget. This is due to our copier lease being paid in full. I actually was surprised by the annual cost of copiers, so that's something I'll certainly be looking at the next opportunity that we have. Books and periodicals reflects an $84,000 payment to iReady, and we have expended $119,000 year to date. Repairs and maintenance of $282,000 spent, of which $138,000 is related to tech services for our annual fees. Absence management system of $13,500. Server maintenance of $12,600. Frontline technologies, $69,000, and custom computer renewal, which is $43,000. Dues and fees, the budgeted $155,000, we have spent and encumbered $74,000. $29,100 of that is to the New Hampshire Department of Safety for fingerprinting, the New Hampshire School Board Association, the New Hampshire School Administrators Association membership, and NHIAA membership, which is for athletics and to family ID.
How much are we paying for fingerprinting?
I do not have that
What did you say about
broken out. 29,000 for all of those combined.
fingerprinting?
No. That is for the fingerprinting, the New Hampshire School Board Association, all of the memberships that I gave you are for 20. If you'd like to know, I mean, I can certainly get that.
No, I thought it was like 29 grand, just
No. We have encumbered $22,000 for our Imagine Learning license, and that is where we're at with our dues and fees. Operations of plant insurance is over budget by $28,000. However, we expect reimbursement from Primex for the water damage claim at the high school, which is currently set at $91,000. I actually have a call tomorrow with our insurance carrier to discuss arrangements for when that payment will come in.
that the water damage from the stage, the sprinkler system?
It was flooding, I don't know, it was flooding to the music and the music room and the,
Correct, yeah, that's the water damage from the Van Cars project.
Oh, okay.
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 for
Sorry.
That's okay. Transportation, we've encumbered all funds based on the contracted amounts totaling $3.5 million, but we've only paid $326,000 to date. Moving on to salary expense. Salary expense, as you know, is 73% of our budget, and it is in line with where we are at the fiscal year. In truth, it is 31% of budget, and that includes payment in full for our workers' compensation. So we'll review a little bit more about the salary vacancy opportunities when I get further down into the agenda. Moving to grants. Grants revenue budgeted is $20 million. Year to date, we've received $16 million or 80%. Expenses, while we have expended or encumbered 83% of our budget, we still have greater than $3.3 million remaining to utilize, of which $1 million is earmarked for IDEA and $1.8 million remaining funds in Title I. School lunch revenue, as we kind of discussed a little earlier in operations. Revenue perspective, local daily sales revenue is one factor in the revenue, and the revenue received is currently $144,000, which is an increase year over year, as in July through October of FY24, we had only received $131,000. Federal reimbursement revenue year to date is $87,000. Please note that we did not receive any funds until January of FY24, so I don't anticipate, I anticipate the timing of these revenues to come in line with that, into January of 2025. For expenses, repairs and maintenance is at 93% due to the prepayment of the Heartland payment system for $7,000. And general supplies is at 94% because we encumbered fresh picks for $67,000. However, most importantly, repairs and maintenance is $10,000 over budget, and that is due to an emergency repair of the grease trap at the high school with a cost of $23,000. Fresh fruit and veggies, revenue, we didn't see any revenue posts in FY24 until November, so I expect that is why we have seen no revenue to date. However, my accountant actually told me just earlier today that we received September's reimbursement in just yesterday of $2,921. We did get notification that there's a delay in reimbursements. Expenses, we've encumbered the budgeted $100,000, but have only incurred year-to-date expenses totaling 7% of the budget thus far. CIP, we can go a little further into this, but I wanted to give you some indication on David and I have been working on performing a life-to-date cleanup of CIP. We've gone through all of the open projects and we intend to work with the city. I've actually already sent my spreadsheet over to them to close all of the completed projects so that the report will show only open projects. What we're also doing is we're revisiting any of the projects that have available funds so that we can repurpose them and realign them with other needs within our capabilities. I'm going to just call your attention to the fiscal year-to-date snapshot, which you had asked me to present at each meeting. Year over year, our metrics are all in line. If you compare last year's to this year's, 35% of school revenues this year, 42% last year. Most of those percentages are in line with what our expectations are 4 months into the fiscal year. October Finance Committee follow-ups. Per your request and your invitation, the Robotics Club that recently received a grant has accepted your invitation to attend our Thursday Finance Committee meeting to present on their opportunities, initiatives, and how they're using the grant. So you look forward to that, February. As requested, the projection of excess funds and how to use them. We will be reviewing and discussing these opportunities amongst Cabinet in December and January, and will present to the Finance Committee for discussion in February. And lastly, I just gave you a little calendar of when you should expect your agendas going forward, and also when the finance meeting is and which the last payroll is being captured in that. So you kind of know that you're getting when your latest payroll is, usually 2 or 3 days before our meetings. Moving on to vacancy savings. What I've done here is compiled a list of all of our open positions that are being paid through our general fund. And again, if these positions are not filled by the end of November, we would see a savings of $164,000 this month. We have 8 openings in regular instruction, 36 openings in special education, and 1 opening in food service. As I presented last month, we had a year-to-date financial savings of roughly $350,000. So in line with that, adding that to the current, we're probably roughly around $500,000 with some funds that we are anticipating to save because of these vacancies. How will we utilize these? At the moment, we're just considering ADA compliance at School Street, and we will be submitting a plan in December for this. And everybody wants a piece of it, so I know you're all going to ask, like, what else can we do? And we will work on some suggestions for you.
Mr. Boyd?
School Street is a school that we're potentially closing. I'm just wondering the purpose of ADA compliance. Or actually, we are closing.
You want me to? I don't mind doing it.
Okay,
We have been considering moving the SAU office to School Street with a significant savings in rent that we would not have to pay, no longer have to pay to the city. We can quantify that for you. We're really right now evaluating which units would need to stay and which units would come with us. But we're anticipating roughly $100,000 per year savings at the moment.
Are you going to see the plan? Thank you.
Did you have anything? Today, I presented to you the grant-funded stipends, which the board, the committee is requested to approve. Any stipends over $500. There are 9 stipends that are paid out of Title II and 7 that are paid out of OSTCP, which is the Opportunity Scholarship Tax Credit Program for scholars who live in low-achieving schools. The total for these stipends, 16 individuals for a total of $29,000.
Mrs. Harrington?
Thank you. I'd like to move to the full board the approval of the grant-funded stipends.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Harrington, second by Mr. Kabir. Discussion? Mrs. Harrington?
I'm just curious why the high school future pathways coordinator, there's 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, but they're not of equal value. I don't know if that was a typo or if they're not.
It is not a typo, but I do not have the answer for you, but I will have to get it.
That's okay.
Any more discussion on that motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Personnel, we have 1 resignation. Our Title I Federal Grants Director, Mackenzie Harris, has resigned, and I present that to you.
Motion to accept?
Motion by Mr. Boyer, second by Ms. Mary. Discussion?
Then we move it to the full board.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so under other business, I had a request from a committee member, or do you want, should we move to? the job descriptions first. Job descriptions, oh no, Jewel Sediment was added to the agenda per another member, so I'll address that first. How about that? Going forward, I'll be reporting on the Jewel Fund status and utilization. The original amount we received was $4.7 million. We received another $1 million from Altria for a total of $5.8 million. The city is still anticipating receiving another $2 million for the district over the next several years. Year-to-date expenses are $42,560 in salary, $26 in travel reimbursement, $699,612 has been paid for the cameras. However, another $247,381 is still encumbered for the cameras. So that, factoring all that in, available funds as of November 5th are $4,826,022. Just some commentary, we have a FACE director that is starting November 18th that will be paid out of the Jewel settlement. We also received approval from the Jewel settlement attorneys at the city to hire, which I'm presenting to you in a moment, a grant writer using Jewel funds, and to purchase walkie-talkies that pair with the RPD using Jewel funds. And lastly, we received approval that we could purchase vape detectors, and they will qualify under Jewel funding as well.
Any discussion on that update?
Yes.
Mr. Cusimano?
To spend the Jewel money, do they need board approval?
No.
Is my question.
I-
So anytime money comes out of that, my question is do we need board approval to spend that money, or is it at the superintendent's discretion?
It is a settlement, so it's not handled necessarily the same way other funds are handled, but I'm coming to you tonight with a suggestion for another purchase.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Ultimately, in the end, like, if we want the superintendent to come forward and spending money, us as a board, as a full board, can make.
I was just
that-
talking to
that-
this
that
specific
decision.
topic.
But
Yeah, I was
I don't
talking.
think it's,
Okay.
like, I don't,
So it
I'll
follows the
refer,
same. Okay.
I'll refer back to other board members that have been here a while. Ultimately, in the end, if the board can make a decision on how they want something to go. So if that's down the road what we want to do, that's something we can discuss. I know Mr. Boyd had a hand.
Well, my take on it is it's money that, even though it's settlement, it comes in and is shown in our budget as, so we should be aware of the expenses or how it's being expended. Especially when it comes to personnel or whatnot, because somewhere down the road that money runs out, and those positions that are funded in that, with that money now, will end up either being dissolved or taken up in our regular budget. But any money that comes into our budget overall should at least, we should have some recollection or some knowledge of how it's being spent. So it's not a carte blanche.
Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, so this would follow the regular purchasing process, it's just the funding is from Jewel settlement. So in the case of like a new position, they come to us, that we review that. If it's a purchase of equipment, there's an equipment budget that the superintendent can do up to a certain dollar amount, anything over, and then, but we're asking with the Jewel settlement, just keep the tally here and forecast out, like, if all these are fulfilled, this is what you got left.
Yeah, Mike, that would fit into, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if it followed.
I just
that
want
same-
the-
I
what's the
apologize.
word?
Oh, I could have answered that. I knew
Okay.
that we do follow the normal bid process and,
Okay.
That was
within,
my-
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, just when the wording says receive approval from Jewel settlement attorneys, that just means you can use this as a funding
Okay.
source.
Right.
The board has to give the funding.
Correct. It's just saying we can, it qualifies it
Okay.
as a. And lastly,
No. Any more questions
Oh,
on
no.
Joel?
No, sorry about that.
You have one, I'm sorry.
yeah, sure.
And I know like for the example of, the FACE director starts obviously at 11/18, so But if they start now, I know we have 4.8 million left right now based off of current expenses. However, if they start, if you forecast it out, that's less than 4.8 million, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something that if we're looking at things being brought to our attention, like with this position filled, and in theory, it's a 5-year role or 10-year role, that's a certain dollar amount that should be subtracted out of 4.8. So if you come to us and say, hey, I'd like to buy this $50,000 piece of equipment, we know what we got left in the checking account.
So I'll annualize this out, the salary expense,
But if
for
it's
all of the positions, and then multiply it by a 5-year period and say that that's the encumbered amount.
Yeah, so that way we
know.
know, if we don't have 4.8 million, we might
Yeah.
have 2.4, I don't know, I'm throwing a number out there, but you know what I mean? We
Sure,
don't-
I understand, but that's what we'll have to absorb at the end of it.
So when it comes to Jewel, what was the total amount that we won in this settlement? Do we know, how is it getting, the city has it, but we're getting so much each year?
We received $4,738,191 as a part of the settlement.
That's the full settlement, that's how much we'll get total, once that's gone, it's gone.
Correct,
Okay.
but then there's been 2 additions to that thereafter. The $1 million that we received from, I don't know how to pronounce it, Altria,
Okay.
and then another $2 million that will be coming from miscellaneous, smaller settlements over the course of the next several years.
Okay.
So that would make a total of $7.8 million.
70. Thank you. Mr. Lloyd.
So just for the math piece, if we don't have the, like the 4.7 is in an account,
It is,
Right.
and so is the million.
and the million, so you got 5.8 in an account, which you're down to the 2
Correct.
years. I wouldn't count that 2 million until, like, you don't count till you get the check, right?
Correct,
So
absolutely.
that's just something if we're
That's why it's like a
thinking
little
about
bullet.
it. And I
But
like
do you want
that,
like a mini, maybe I'll just do like a mini P&L for you.
I'm never gonna argue with that, but. If you
I
insist,
actually like that.
but
I'll do that for you.
you just
I
don't,
love
I don't wanna
P&Ls.
count for 2 million that, you know, don't knock at you.
I won't include that in.
And I get you're doing that,
It'll
but I
just be a
don't
little
want
footnote,
something,
yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
understood,
Thank you so much.
of course.
Love this.
So I am here today to submit and request 3 positions that I'd like to discuss. An accounting and grants manager position, seeking approval for this position. It is the combination of the previously approved senior accountant position and the recently resigned role of the grants manager. This role would be completely funded by Title I. What I did after kind of evaluating the responsibilities of our area and some shortfalls that Katie has in her area, I combined this role, and Katie and I discussed adding a position control manager and kind of splitting out the duties that were on that senior accountant position that was reviewed and approved. So do you want to do these one at a time, or do you want me to kind of explain?
One at a time.
Can I
Okay.
just jump in one?
Yeah.
For the 2 positions that Adriana will speak of, these have already been approved by the board. We're just changing up the job descriptions and the title.
And the funding source?
The funding source is Title I for one of them entirely, and the other one's already in the budget, and we've actually reduced the salaries on both.
Correct, so the general fund will have less of an impact structured this way than it originally had with the other, under the other scenario.
Discussion on the first one, the accounts and grants manager, that's the first one, correct? Any discussion on it? Anyone want to make the motion to approve that job description?
The motion to approve the accounting and grants manager, and move to full board.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blue, second by Mr. Guzman, any discussion? Mr. Bellis.
Thank you, sir. Is the compensation for that position, how is that number, how do we arrive at that number?
Basically, kind of just looking at what other senior accountants are making. There was a UNH position that was recently posted for similar functions and responsibilities at, quite frankly, a higher salary.
Use market analytics to,
Mrs. Herring.
Is there a reason we can't combine the grants writer position within the role of accounting and grants manager. I know grants manager is all the title funded grants, but I don't know that there's enough work to be done for a full-time grants writer.
I can certainly speak to that position if you'd like. I just do one at a time. So I can, do you want my presentation on the grant writer position?
Or just the rationale why that couldn't be included in the accounting and grants manager position.
I already believe that with a full-time individual doing the federal grants management, and adding the responsibility of the MS reporting and the DOE reporting, that I'm already adding to the burden that that position already had. So to add even more and ask an individual to not only manage the existing ones, but to look for opportunities for others would be unfair.
Thank you.
That's just my logic.
Mr. Kusimov?
I would assume with your background, you're basically using analytics for the salary based off of the areas of where you're getting these salary ranges, correct?
From our, from the geographic regions.
Any more discussion? No motion on the table, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This is Keith.
So do I understand from the ARPA that we only have $4,000 left? We've used up that whole grant, that 3-year grant, or whatever it was, that ESSER grant?
Oh, yes, Esther's done.
So we're down to $4,000? Yeah, left,
It's closed, so we're no
okay.
longer using it.
great, great, I'm glad to hear that. My other question is, and I'm not sure it's appropriate for you, I don't know who it's for, but I brought it up last month and I obviously didn't explain myself very well. Because I got the answer was, well, it's in the budget and it's in the contracts. That's not my question about stipends. My question about stipends is, how do we determine what those should be? I mean, does the football coach that works 3 months of the year for, I don't know, for 10 hours a week, is that the same thing as the head of the English department? I don't, what do we do? Do we use student contact hours, or don't we do any of that? We just say, hey, that's a good number. And it's even like these right here, the ones we looked at tonight.
So we'll direct that to the superintendent to answer.
Are those,
She's
could I
got,
finish asking the question?
yeah, go.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
We're going to have you at a meeting tonight, Shannon, thank you. Are these salaries on tonight's sheet, are those determined by the amounts of the grant? Or is that also negotiated by you or something, whatever, or something?
Those are set forth by, I believe, go ahead, Katie.
So there's, and this is something I'm gonna say that I'm learning a lot about this year, so I wanna share with you kind of what I'm learning and where we're going with it. So the bulk of our stipends, our co-curricular, our coaching, those stipends, the ones that are especially included in the CBA, there is, per the CBA, supposed to be a committee that meets at least yearly, and that committee should be representative of elementary, middle, high school, administrators, teachers, coaches, advisors, everyone would come together, and that's where we determine the dollar amount for most of those. We also have to take into account things like Title IX and make sure that we're balancing, female and male sports. So there's a lot of different factors, and we are
That's, I'm looking for the factors. That's, because I mean, the criteria for me should be the number of contact hours with the students, the number of students, I mean, I don't think the golf coach has as many contact hours, unless he's playing golf himself, as the football staff does, so I wanna know, do you base it on number of contact hours, the number of kids in the program? I mean, what criteria do you use to come up with the numbers is what I'm looking for, not who's on the committee that decides that. But do you have a set of criteria that you use before the committee
sits down.
sits down?
I will be able to report more after we have the first committee meeting and I participate in it, to share what was considered. I think having set metrics isn't a bad idea, and I think that we could work on that and be able to talk about it. There's definitely areas for improvement within our stipend system, and we're aware of that. So we're definitely looking at it. This is a good year for it. We're up for negotiations. Those are included in the CBA. So that's the bulk of our stipends, and that committee will meet. And then I can share with you kind of what the team decided as far as how those stipends go. Now, that being said, within the CBA, there's also a hierarchy of fees where it says a new club has to start at X amount, and it has to exist for so long, it has to meet so many times per week. So there's some criteria set forth within the language of the CBA. And then over time, that stipend can increase with the success of the sport or the club, or et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that's, I'm looking.
The grant ones are slightly different. So the grant ones, they are determined when we write the grant, if that makes sense. And that's really working with our curriculum advisors, like Kathy and Andrea and Katya McKenzie, to see what is the amount of work. And then there is descriptions of how frequently is this person going to be leading, let's say, professional development, coaching teachers. All of those different pieces would play into
Well, that's
the
good,
volume
that's what
of
I want,
stipend.
it's criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want them personally, I don't care about, I just want the system here to have a criteria base that they use for all,
Absolutely.
whether it's coaches or whether it's classroom, or whether it's Title III or II or whatever, yeah. So that's all. Okay, good, sounds like you got your under control, Katie, and I'll check with you later. Thank you.
You are welcome.
This second position, the position control manager, is born again from pulling out the non-accounting functions that we had in the other job description. It includes, hold on a second, lost my train of thought. We recently did an analysis of our MUNIS system, and we recognized that we were not using several of the pieces of the HR module and position control module that we really could be using. We have consulted with Diane Hoyt, who implemented position control in the city. She picked up on the city side where we stopped, on the school side. And she's been doing some analytical work and recognizes that there are definitely areas of improvement, and we can be utilizing the system much better. At the moment, we are doing all of our personnel transactions manually and rather than systematically, which inevitably creates errors and is very time and effort, labor intensive, due to human aspect of managing significant data. And so I bring forth to you today this second part of this position control manager for your review and approval.
What's the funding source?
So this is, because the other position can be Title I funded, this is general fund, but the salary for this position is actually less than the salary we had originally requested for the other.
So here's my question, we're using general funds, but where are we getting the general funds when we couldn't even, we had to do some magic at the end of the year, and I think I made a couple people mad, to pay for our current positions that we currently have in the district. So now we're adding another administration position. So where are we pulling this from?
This position was already actually approved a couple of months ago. I brought it forward as a position control accountant. And so what we've done is, we've taken the federal grants manager, and then we've woven in some of the duties from the position control accountant into the accounting and grants manager. That will be Title I funded 100%. So then the other position that's already in the budget will be the position grants manager, and the salary has been decreased.
So it's already in the budget?
It's already in the budget.
Okay,
Correct.
that's all I care about.
Mrs. Aaron?
But this position reports to the Director of Human Resources versus Finance.
Yes, because position control typically is a result of individuals moving from one department to another, or analyzing what positions do we have available, where do we need to fill some gaps, and it's a reflection of payroll and human benefits, so it would be very much
resources. Any discussion? Mr. Bullion?
Make a motion to accept the New Hampshire, how does it position control manager?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Boyer, second by Mr. Cusimano. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And next item.
The last position I am seeking approval on is as a grants writer. We received approval, as I mentioned earlier, that this position, as the description is written, could be funded through Jewel. It is intended to find social and emotional grants and extracurricular activities and to keep scholars engaged and active outside of school, which is why it qualifies as a Jewel-funded position. This position will research, identify, and develop proposals for federal, state, and private grants focused on youth substance abuse prevention, mental health support, and wellness education. Jewel settlement funds are not designed per se to be put aside or saved indefinitely. They are intended to be actively utilized in ways that directly benefit our children's schools and the broader district. The funds arise from situations that have had an impact on our schools, on our scholars' health and well-being. And this makes it even more important that we invest them into initiatives mitigating similar issues and building a safer, healthier environment. By actively deploying these funds, we are able to drive positive change and move the needle in areas like health education, preventative programs, and creating supportive, safe school environments. These funds allow us to address some immediate needs while also laying a foundation for long-term improvements. It is an opportunity to demonstrate, in my opinion, responsibility by ensuring every dollar is used to enhance student safety, well-being, and education. Investing these funds proactively rather than saving them aligns with our commitment to making a tangible positive impact now, and we can then determine if these impacts are being productive and moving the needle forward before we need to move anything into our general fund.
Mr. Bullion?
So, I'm glad you gave that definition and explaining the use of Jewel funds. And that brings up, I think, the bigger issue, or not bigger issue, but bigger conversation. Strategically, we have a bucket of money, and we are piecemealing. Oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. Now, it might be a plan, because every time you say something, I got a plan for that, and I love it. However, what's the plan strategically with this money before we, personally, before I would say yes to grant writer, I wanna know what the plan is. And then I know the piece of the plan needs this, and everything else is already allocated that we wanna do. So I'd like to see the strategic plan for Jewel settlement funds before approving something like this personally.
Mr. Bell?
I agree with you, Mr. Bowler, so thank you for putting that out there. The other thing I would wonder is, do we anticipate that a person that we put in this position would generate more in grants than what we're paying for them in salary? Is that a reasonable expectation?
I mean, we have discussed that in addition to this, we have discussed that, our future relies more on finding other areas and streams of revenue. And this is certainly going to be one of them. Although focusing on these initiatives, that doesn't mean per se that 3 years down the road, this person isn't finding other revenue streams for us as a district.
Thank you.
Mr. Cusimano?
We had a grant writer. She was mostly funded by Title I, I think, when we were talking about at one point, and then we subsidized it somewhat through the general budget last year. Or did that grant run out?
So the only grant, we only had a federal grants manager. She wasn't a writer. So she was only handling our federal grants and managing them, but she was not writing grants.
Until I see a long-term plan, I will not approve any Jewel settlement to be used for any administration or thing. If you want to come to me for a teacher, psychologist, something along that line, I'll be more than happy to, but not for another admin.
This is not an admin position, just a
Central office, I will not approve another central office unless I see a long-term plan. But like I said, teachers, stuff like that, all day, not another central office, I'm sorry.
So are we looking for next month for them to come forward with us a more long-term plan with the Jewel settlement? Is that what it sounds like we're looking for?
Can I just give one example that might be helpful with like a very local implication? So there's a lot of really great federal grants out there, and when you go through the things that you need to have and then the things that are nice to have, writing grants sometimes feels like a nice to have because we're operating with the money we have and that's not yet in our bank account. You look at Woodman Park Elementary School, which is right next door. This year in a single federal grant, which we could write for it for the next year, they've secured $165,000 to do after-school and enrichment programs with that one elementary school that's a federal grant that's available to us. OSAP secured $98,135 for this fiscal year, which both, and again, I think would have a really great chance at getting that for multiple schools. And right now, we can't offer things like after-school tutoring, which we used to be able to do, or summer programs. And this might be an opportunity to get some of those, which would benefit our schools in a really cool way. But again, I just wanted to give a concrete example of what type of dollars we're talking about that are out there.
And we really wanted those funds, and we want to go after them, which I know the central office does. We have a lot of admin up there. We have a lot of decently paid positions, and I know you guys are probably already overworked. But if it's that hard to go for that, then I would say then that we need to add that to a position or one of the positions that we have here. But right now, I want to see the long-term plan before we continue funding positions, because these are also going to come with 3.5%, 4% pay raises, medical insurance, which doubled the last budget cycle. So what you're telling us today of one position isn't going to cost us that same in 5 years. And this money was brought for the kids, to do stuff with the kids, and I fully agree that it needs to get out there. But if it's that important, we got a budget, you got a great superintendent, you got an amazing board, I'm sure they can find the money to do it. And we can use this money to make immediate impacts, not wait on the federal government to send us money and get some things fixed around the district.
Ms. McGowan, or Ms. Lloyd?
So I am in support of this. I think having a grants writer would be great. I know how much work it is writing a grant. Could someone explain to the rest of the board that may not know how intensive it is being a grant writer?
I've written several grants in my previous districts. It is very labor intensive. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of analytics and data and gathering data and meeting with stakeholders, doing a needs assessment, and then actually writing the grant. So it is intensive, and I've brought in grants that probably covered my entire salary. And so the intent is that this position will really be a cost neutral addition because it'll be paying for itself, the grants that come in. And just one more thing, if I may add. Schools are really crying for after-school programming and enrichment activities. We haven't been able to provide it. And so this could be an avenue of us providing schools what they're asking for, which with those after-school programs, and keeping students engaged in school and not with idle hands.
Mr. Lloyd?
So let's make it very clear, I don't think it's the position that's the challenge, it's just the funds. Okay, so I think it can be justified. So I would make a motion to table this until after the strategic plan for the Jewel 7 funds is made.
Second.
Motion to the tables by Mr. Boyer, second by Ms. Harrington. So I'm right in the middle. I know if Jewel funds are used for helping mental health, and there's many ways we can help mental health, and this is one of them. But I know there's a lot of our facilities that need upgrading, from probably bathrooms in our schools to our athletic fields. That also helps with mental health. I know our facilities on the field for the high school they're terrible. They are absolutely terrible for when people are going. So there's many ways we can use these dual settlements, and we have used a lot of them for positions, which I think they're important positions that we have that are needed. But I also want to see us just open up, and where else can we utilize these? And so that's why I'm kind of right right there in the middle and really not decided on either way. Mr. Bellows and Mr. Guzman.
How quickly can we get a long-range plan for the Juul settlement? I know we've already hired several people on it, and I think we're intending to try to pay them for as long as we can from it, so that's one thing we haven't seen yet. Is that something that we can have by the full board meeting? Is that something that we can have by next month's finance meeting?
So, okay. So we actually have it. I have been hesitant to present it because I want to make sure that I consult with the principals. This actually came from the discussions, the budget discussions with the principals, what the needs are, so we actually have it. I have to make it look pretty and present it to the board, but I can certainly have it for you for the next board meeting next Thursday.
May I follow up on that? So based on that, if this were the last, let's just pretend for sake of conversation that this were the last position that we were gonna fund out of the Juul settlement, between that and any other things that you've identified with the principals, how much time do we have left in that fund before we exhaust it?
With the plan that I
Correct.
proposed?
Yes.
So anything I do is always for 5 years because of our strategic plan, which is a 5-year.
Sure.
So anything that I propose is good for 5 years. And then that's when we develop a new strategic plan to find out, well, where are we now? Have we met all of our goals? And if not, do we pivot? Do we adjust? And so everything I propose is always with a 5-year timeline.
So if I may, this will be the last thing. So I think what I'm hearing you say is between the positions that we've already funded through Juul and other things that you've identified through working with administrators, we will have exhausted that fund by the end of 5 years.
No, so we'll still have actually money left.
Okay.
I just said for the plan that I've developed
Sure.
now, it's good for 5 years.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guzman.
So, it seems like this position's really important. The general fund has the money based on unfilled positions, correct?
Oh, yes, are you looking at me? Yes, it
So it has
does.
it based off of it. My recommendation, either A, we table it until we have the full plan and brought into committee, then to full board. Or, if you want the position, you put it take it out of the general fund, you have $356,834, right? According to this thing. So you pull it out of there to pay for them, and then bring a return on the investment to this board next year, or when you can, showing that the grant writer did it, and then you might get enough votes to get it out of this board, or out of this committee, to use the Juul settlement. But I think what I heard, it's gonna be very hard to get that. If you want, like I said, if you want the position, change the funding source, the money's there right now. And show us that will return a bigger investment than the annual salary. As a proposal for you.
So you are more of a proponent of having the expense of the general fund than, say, a balance sheet account?
Bring me proof that the position will bring us more money in 1 year than it cost us for me to release any Juul settlement money for any administration position. And you got the money right there. Do you wanna change the funding source? I would highly
So
recommend.
the motion's on the table right now to table it. Because we want to see a little more, maybe table it to next month.
That's fine.
Because like I said, I have my interest where we all have our, like, yes, we got these positions, a lot of them are needed, but I would like to see maybe our operations manager find where we could use that money in the buildings to upgrade things for this mental health in our buildings. Because our buildings are old, so there's many things that could be upgraded to use that Juul money for mental health there as well. I would just like a wider range of what else we could do before. Because I'm not saying I'm not on board with this, I just want to see what else we can do with this money. Ms. Keys.
Thank you. I fully endorse this myself, because I have a couple of friends that are grant writers, and it's very, as Shawnee said, extremely tedious. But there, if you go to the library, there's a book like this that has various grants in it. And You have to paw through all of them, and they do hours and hours of research to get that money. But it's generally well worth it, and a good grant writer will bring in a lot more than their salary. So I think it's crazy not to go with one. I wish we'd had one years ago.
And I think,
Thank you.
and I think most of us, we're not saying we're not on board with it, we just want a little more information before we are moving forward with it. Mr. Bello?
Thank you, sir. I'm in favor for this, so if we didn't table it, I think I would vote yes tonight on it. But I am wondering, would we miss an opportunity if we wait another month to approve this?
There's always that possibility. I don't know the deadlines for these specific grants. I mean, the one that I pulled up, I just happen to know. I know there's a lot else out there, but in lieu of looking, there's a good chance, because grants are awarded almost a year in advance of when they can be extended. So we may miss a window. I mean, there's always grants, but you may miss a window for some of the big federal grants. I don't know if you remember, Annie.
January and February.
January and February are those typical due dates.
Mr. Guzman?
Fiscal year for the federal government just started October 1st, and you're gonna have a new administration. That's why I was giving you another option to get this through committee tonight. If you could get the votes and get it to full board. It's another just option that, out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be on board with moving it to general fund. I think that the best thing is to table and get a little more info and then come back next month. I think that's I know we want to get started on this, but I think we just want more information. And I think ultimately that's gonna be the best source of probably to utilize this is the Juul 70, just. Maybe Mr. Guzman?
Yeah, I'm good with tabling it, but the best source of using it for right now is the free money in the district. We're not drawing interest off of it, we're not making money off of it, it's sitting there in a law account. So that's my personal opinion, that probably would come from a banker, it's not making us money, it's sitting there. So unless we have a $356,834 expense, it's just increasing every single month. So if you wanna delay, like Annie said, January, February are probably your biggest grant months. Those are also gonna need to start now. But I'm okay with tabling it. I have no problem tabling it, but I disagree on the statement that that's the best use of funding, because the best use of funding is free fund money right now that's in the account.
Ms. McGowan?
So exactly what Annie said. January, February, we missed those deadlines, we're waiting another year past 2025. I am not in favor of tabling it, I'm in favor of passing it tonight. Like it's not, I get the whole using funds for another position, but there's millions in this, and Annie says she has a plan that she's gonna present with other things. There's the specific criteria that you have to meet to buy like actual things for schools. I still a little unclear what the specific criteria is. I know we got the email, but this is going to add more things to schools. Like, it's a no-brainer for me. I don't understand why we're so against passing this when we know there's a plan coming.
Mr. Boyle?
So I just want to, again, be clear. Our motion does not say the position's not needed. We're making highly huge assumptions that there's a candidate that would start today.
Well, we would have to go through.
Correct, and then you're looking at 30 to 45 day process before they start. They're not ready until January. We already missed the boat for this year. I think we want more information, that's why there's a motion on the table and I call the vote.
All right, so we have the motion by Mr. Boyer, second by Ms. Harrington, if I was correct. All those I'm gonna do roll call. You do roll call, because I think that's kind of pre-split. The motion is to table
until you're.
till next
Actually,
month.
non-debatable.
Or till next week.
Shouldn't even had all that debate. But
Can we table the next week or the full portion?
That would be his
The motion.
it's
I
his
just said
motion.
motion till the plan is presented.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so,
if you came back next week, then you could have that in the full board review, right?
okay, so it's motion until the plan is submitted by the superintendent. So it could be next week.
Roll call.
Yeah, roll call, please.
Member Downs,
Yes.
Member Bollier,
Yes.
Member Bellows,
No.
Member Kameri,
Yes.
Member Kusimano,
Yes.
Member Harrington,
Yes.
Member McGowan.
No.
Opposed the numbers? Is it 5-3?
Yes.
Motion passes. So.
Oh, no,
Two,
sorry,
5-2,
5-2.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Math's not my thing.
We'll do the grant writer.
Yeah, I won't be applying for the grant writer. So, just to clarify, if the superintendent has the plan ready, she can, we'll have it on the agenda next week. All right, and next item,
Actually, I got one more.
hold on, we have another,
No, just on the same topic.
okay.
Can we have the projected cost of the position over the total year, not just including the salary, is what it would cost us for insurance, retirement, and then increase spread over 5 years? Thank you.
More on that, none, all right, next item is public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none. All right, next item is an F, other. Anybody have anything on the other? No, okay, next item is non-public. We are gonna go into non-public briefly under RSA 91-A, semicolon 3. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bollier. Roll call, please.
Oops, sorry.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bollier, second by Mr. Cusimano. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.